Sometimes you're impatient when you start writing. It's not obvious, it's not loud, but it's there. You finish a page, and immediately, somewhere in your mind, you're asking, so what does this mean? Did I understand something? Did I get closer to clarity? Was this useful? Did I use my time? And if the answer isn't clear, the page starts to feel incomplete, almost useless. Like it didn't do what it was supposed to do. We're used to things making sense quickly: a problem, a solution, a question, an answer. But writing doesn't always work like that. Sometimes you write something today and it doesn't make sense until weeks later. Sometimes you revisit an old page and realize it was pointing towards something you couldn't see at the time, but it was right there in front of you. And that delay can feel frustrating because it means you have to sit in the not knowing. But that delay is also where something important happens. Meaning, when it's real, doesn't usually arrive on command, it forms slowly. It needs repetition, time, or certain distance from the moment you're in. There is a reason why certain lines only make sense to you later, why something you read or wrote months ago suddenly feels clear. It's not because you missed it before, it's because you weren't ready to understand it yet. And writing is part of that process. Not the moment of conclusion, but the space where things begin to take shape. When you allow meaning to arrive slowly, your relationship with the page changes. You stop expecting each entry to give you something immediate. You stop measuring your writing by how much clarity it produces. And instead, you begin to trust the accumulation. The way thoughts return in different forms, the way certain themes keep appearing even when you don't intend them to. That repetition isn't a failure to move forward, it's part of how understanding builds. If you look at your writing over time, you'll notice this. You don't arrive at something all at once. You circle it. You approach it from different angles. You write around it before you write through it. And then one day, it becomes clear. Not because you forced it, but because it had enough time to form. There's a kind of patience required for that, not passive patience, the kind where you keep showing up, even when the page doesn't give you anything obvious in return. An unrequited love of sorts. And that's difficult because you're used to effort leading to visible results. But writing asks for something different. It asks you to stay with something before it fully reveals itself. If you've ever looked back at something you wrote and thought, I didn't realize this at the time, you've already experienced this. So maybe your notebook isn't failing you when it doesn't give you immediate meaning. Maybe it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, holding something until you're ready to see it. So don't ask yourself, what did I understand today? Ask, what am I willing to stay with, even if it doesn't make sense yet? You don't have to understand it all now. Just take a page, write what feels unfinished, what feels unclear, and let it remain that way. Close the journal without trying to conclude anything, because meaning doesn't always appear when you ask for it. Sometimes it arrives later, much later, when you've given it enough space to become something you can finally recognize. So, if you're comfortable, share with me. Is there anything in your life right now that feels unfinished, unclear, or that absolutely does not make sense right now?